And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to a victorious, an exciting, a very happy-filled, what a great morning to wake up after you beat your rival edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Purdue. Yesterday in the afternoon game, Indiana goes on to defeat Purdue 73-58, taking their record to 16-11 on the season, 7-9 overall in the Big Ten. That much closer to possibly a little bit of inching their way into the tournament. So we'll see how things play out in these final games, but a huge step in the right direction. IU started out on this game on a good run, taking the lead to around 5 and then maintaining it for a good majority of the first half. Then IU fell apart a little bit as Purdue would close out that first half on a 24-6 run. Second half was probably the best half we've seen this team play all season. A quick 7 points then leads to an overall 25-3 run by Indiana, which gave them the double-digit lead that they would then not give up for the remainder of the game. Thank you for being here with us. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. Martha having some technical difficulties, but we'll hop in as soon as those get solved. What a great game to watch. What an exciting game to watch. Just really was a story of that second half defense. There was that great segment kind of in the second half where IU's guards, you just really ratcheted up the on-the-ball defense, stuff we haven't seen as much consistently for this team is that on-ball defense. And I think a lot of it was led by Miles Rice. It's something that's been in his bag of tricks that we've seen here and there with him very pressuring the guards, getting in really Smith's mind, getting in his headspace, causing him to really struggle in this game. Smith and really all of the ball handlers that IU would have, just one shot for Smith in the second half, with only 1 point coming from the free throw line for him in this game. And then equally so, I would say as well, good game plan by IU overall, but especially by Indiana's bigs in controlling Kaufman-Rent. He as well just had 1 point in the second half, 4 missed shots, just did a really good job of doubling him when he got the ball on the catch, and then being ready there once he took that first dribble and attacking that first dribble and not giving him any space, walling up, staying vertical as defenders, and forcing him to be uncomfortable after that bounce when he tried to bring the ball up. And that was a lot of those turnovers, those knocked away balls. And then around that, I would say, around the bigs doing that, there's been times where we would double bigs earlier in the season in other games, and it would cause tough rotations or bad rotations by the guards to recover after the bigs have passed out, and didn't see that as an issue for IU in this one. They were able to really kind of find their way and recover whenever Kaufman-Rent was able to pass out of those doubles and everything. So really great play by them as well. Martha has ironed out possibly those issues. We'll kind of fight through those as well, but just kind of going through the rundown and the defense to start out this show. Just give me your opening thoughts on this game.
Yes, apologies. Evidently, it's Monday morning for my computer as well because it did not want to get started for the day. So sorry about that. And I'm not sure how far you got into things, but obviously it was a tale of two halves. I thought, we saw a lot of what we've seen defensively from Indiana in that opening half. Well, I think there were spurts of effort just based off it being a rivalry game and big game assembly hall, all that. It just, from what we saw during that stretch of where we lost 5 or 6 games, just the, losing sight of guys and not being where you're supposed to be. And then you come out in the second half and the energy level is completely different. Lineups were messed with a little bit. And when you saw him go to Malik Renew and Mackenzie Mbako spent some time on the bench, and I think it put a pretty solid defensive lineup out there where Indiana really kind of forced Purdue to beat them. They said, hey, Purdue obviously looks a lot different than the Purdue's of the past couple of years. They don't have that guy that they can throw the ball to down low, even though Trey Kaufman-Renn is very, very good. Indiana just said, hey, beat us from the perimeter, and Purdue could not. And I thought it was a great halftime adjustment by Woody and staff. And I thought the boys came out and played one of their best halves of basketball in that second half. And that's on both sides of the ball. So hat tip to them. And hopefully the wild thing about this is where, I'm sure we'll get into the bubble talk and all that, but where these guys sit with what we've got ahead of us, it's, a chance to finish this season on a high note.
Yeah. The lineup thing you teased there, and I think that's a very interesting topic to maybe talk about a little bit more. And you kind of saw that first half. We got a few minutes, 7 minutes from Kanan Carlisle and 9 minutes from Mackenzie. And it was really during that segment where things fell apart to a degree, because I think those two players, maybe not necessarily Carlisle, I wouldn't put in this, but Mackenzie, I would argue, doesn't have that extra layer of intensity that he plays with, or being able to lock in as compared to a lot of the other guards. And I think that's pretty much what led to the lineup changes that we saw in this game. Mackenzie being out of it, and then tested a little bit in the first half, and seen that wasn't working. And then IU really riding with those guards in the second half, where Rice, Leal, Trey, and Goody didn't come out at all. And there was a moment, I would say, in the second half where it did concern me, because it did look like they were getting a little sluggish. But I think adrenaline and being at home really helped them to fight through that and continue going. Your thoughts, more detailed wise, then on that lineup changes in this game?
Yeah, Chad, it's interesting. It begs the question, what if? And I don't think Mackenzie Mbako played a minute in the second half.
No.
And you may have mentioned that. Apologies if you did. Bryson Tucker didn't play. Obviously you look at what Goody and Leal were able to provide from a defensive standpoint. And I thought it was one of Galloway's better games, but from a lineup standpoint, a lot of the stubborn habits have been eliminated. And I'll say the frustrations, right, have been, it took until now. It's felt like there's been some loyalty to some guys that, and right, wrong, or indifferent, right? I mean, Mackenzie Mbako is a great offensive player when he's hot, right? But for everything he gives you on offense, on defense, there are those lapses, those lack of awareness moments, those out of position moments that you sacrifice with him on the court. And at a certain point, you've got to make a decision. And, I think they're Woody made some comments after the game. He's like, look, a lot of it's just going to depend on who we're playing. But he's like, those guys can't play that many minutes. We're going to have to spot check and still get them off the bench at times moving forward. It's all stuff you wish you would have heard like weeks ago. And it's maddening. It just makes you think, man, what if? I mean, because this is a very talented team. And when they play like they did in the second half, I firmly believe they compete with it. They can compete with anybody. So I don't know what finally made, and I'm going to use his line, Woody get over that lineup hump of, saying, hey, this is how we're going to do things. But, man, it's been a long time coming, and you can just see that, I think it gives Indiana its best chance. And I'm just thankful that finally I think it's going to allow him the opportunity to kind of go out on a high note. 3 winnable games on the schedule, and, you win a couple of those, and all of a sudden you're talking about being in a position to make the NCAA tournament. Who would have thought 2 weeks ago? I think it speaks more about how awful the bubble is, but that's okay. We're in a position to kind of sneak in. I think a lot of it is because of his accommodation finally of some of these lineup changes that, and it's not just that fans have been asking for it. It's just, I think it's what gives us the best chance. So it's nice to see us finally do that.
Yeah. I don't know if you call it desperation now or nothing to lose or something, but definitely some sort of switch somewhere has been clicked on this team that has brought some things out here at the end of the season. Obviously, good to have it in general. But like you said, would have been nice to have a couple weeks or months, I should say, earlier. One thing I do want to get your impressions on or your thoughts on, we won't delve too deep into it. But I will say, in my mind, Lille is extremely lucky to have played more than 10 minutes in this game. Your thoughts on that F2? For me, I would say, leading into it, very interesting for the refs to decide to wave it clean and not call anything at all. I think Caleb hook and held and pulled him down to start. And then that foot moved pretty intentionally in my eyes. So I don't know. What were your thoughts on that whole play?
When I first saw it, I was actually at one of my kids' basketball game, and I was trying to follow along in the first half, and I saw the highlight on X, and it was just the kick, but I saw what kind of led up to it. I don't know. I think it might have been kind of an intentional kick. I don't necessarily know that he was, his back was to first. I don't know that he was aiming for the groin per se, but, I think in that situation, if I was in Anthony's situation, I would have probably had the drive to kick first as well. I thought it took Anthony down to the ground a little bit. I think obviously in a game like that where you're trying to get a win, you've got to be very careful on how you retaliate in moments like that. But it's a rivalry game. I kind of get it. And I kind of don't mind it. I mean, it's you never want to put yourself in a position to sacrifice your team or sacrifice a win or a loss. But in a game like that, when emotions are high and you really felt that they were playing for their head coach and trying to get him a win, I don't mind it in that situation, especially with all that was on the line. So emotions were high, and you don't see that a lot. Obviously you see Anthony play emotional, but you don't see him outside of the other Purdue game where I think he was jarring with the player at Purdue and somebody got a tech. I can't remember how that went down, but I love it. I love the passion in the Purdue game. And again, I don't think he was trying to kick him in the groin. I think he was just trying to kick him a little bit and tell him to get off of him. But in that moment, in that game, I don't mind it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think maybe with Lille being a lifelong Indiana fan, a Hoosier Nation since birth, and it being the 40th anniversary of the chair throw, wearing this hat in honor of that. Possibly this was his homage to that. I can't throw a chair, so I'll kick a foot. And I will say, Caleb surprisingly recovered very quickly, faster than I would have for a kick to the groin. So obviously some embellishment there as well. But all that aside, I will say just the overall willpower in this game by the Indiana guys. And by that, I mean Goody, Trey, and Lille was definitely evident and felt that they know that this game means so much more, wearing that uniform, playing against that team in that hall and everything, with everything going on. And like you said, and even with this play as well, another player could take that a little bit more aggressive and get even more ornery, I could say, in the game. But I think they played right on that razor's edge of just tenacity in this game and everything, which is what led to the great defense that we saw. And then Leo had a wonderful stat building game as well. 8 points for him, 3 for 4, 1 for 3 from 3 for 4 from the free throw line at 31 minutes, up there in the amount that he's played this game, played the entire second half. Like all those guards did, and just did a great job as well as on the offensive side. You saw him being a good backdoor option for the bigs, diving down underneath. And then again, one of the ones that was key, along with Rice, to shutting down Smith and making everything uncomfortable and just being pestering for him in this game. Your thoughts on Leal's game overall?
I thought Anthony, anytime you look at the balance across the starting five, and he was obviously a good contributor of that, but Anthony playing 35 minutes, and we've talked a lot about how good things happen when he's on the court. Whether it's him being in the right position at the right time or just hitting a big shot towards the end of the game. I thought he was a bit of a menace a little bit. He was chippy. He was I think he had 4 fouls. One of Indiana's players with 4 fouls, so he was getting into it, getting dirty a little bit. But again, I think you hit the nail on the head when, and it's not saying that this game doesn't mean anything to the guys that didn't grow up in the state, but I certainly think it means a little bit more, right? When you've been around that. I mean, kid grew up in Bloomington. He's been around that rivalry his whole life. So, I think it meant a little bit more. And I think it was important to have him and Trey and Luke on the court in a game like this, because you're going to get that effort out of them. You're going to get that drive out of them. And Anthony was just a massive part of, I remember that play from, kind of spur the run where Trey threw the ball up ahead of the court and hit Anthony for that layup. And I thought that was a huge moment in the game to get that run going. So it was just, I think Anthony was just really key in this team getting the win. And I bet you're going to see him on the court, a lot of minutes moving forward down the last 3 Big Ten games and even into the tournament, Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, it kind of makes you look back on his career and wish that a little bit more playtime in years past, maybe we would have unlocked this sooner out of him and everything. But at least great to see him get the curtain call that he deserves for IU, despite all the other noise and situation around him. And speaking of his buddy, Trey, I think he really kind of controlled the game, and we're really getting best Trey that we've ever seen right now at this point of the season, which is obviously not ideal to not have it for longer spurts in this season, but great to have it at this point. Just really got downhill really well in this game. There were lots of moments where IU's offense obviously wasn't the greatest in this game or didn't look great. And it was really Trey Galloway being the ball handler that was able to get to his right hand. I mean, the scouting report is always going to be, don't let him get downhill on his right hand, but he still finds ways on those ball screens to get in those moments. And his decision making, once he did get there, was a lot better. He didn't get himself stuck in odd situations, finishing with 15 points in this game on 5 for 10 shooting, 1 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 on the charity stripe. And the biggest stat, I think, for me is his 9 assists and how he was really a contributor for that in almost playing the whole entire game, 38 minutes. Just really good leader on this team for that game. What are your thoughts on Trey's game?
Both games against Purdue, he has, I remember Matt Painter after the loss in Mackey Arena. He's like, I think we should all sit here being thankful that Trey Galloway didn't shoot that last shot. He was getting everything he wanted. And, you look at his game yesterday too, and the balance he provided, and he hit that big 3-pointer that pushed IU's lead to 14 points with a couple minutes remaining. Kind of Purdue was kind of nudging back a little bit and putting themselves in a position to maybe make a run to the end of the game. But, I think not only his shot making, you touched on it too, but his playmaking and his facilitating of the basketball were I think just as big, right? I think you mentioned the 9 assists versus 2 turnovers. That was huge. Didn't come off the floor in the second half. And the guy's taken a lot of heat this year, right, wrong, and different. Certainly he's had some moments where he struggled a little bit, but this is the Trey that we've needed, that we've come to love and appreciate, and that motor that he's got, and coach's kid being in the right place at the right time. A lot of the same intangibles that I think Anthony has. I thought it was just a really solid performance. One that, and you heard him talk about it at the after the game, how important it was to him, because he knows how important it is to everybody involved with IU. So it was good to see. It was good to see those guys their last game against Purdue have that type of, come out with that type of energy and effort and get that type of results, where the results have been few and far between in moments this season. So I was really happy for Trey, and I thought it was one of his best games of the season.
Yeah. We really need that kind of Trey as much as we can, and in every game as well. And I think with that kind of Trey comes an equally good and what we need from here on out of Miles Rice. And I think we saw Miles Rice that we've needed to have a lot more. It's kind of an old Miles Rice. And I think a lot of it is the fact that I love having those two playing so many minutes together. It allows Rice to play off the ball. It allows them to switch who's going to bring the ball up and initiate the offense and everything. And then even allowed Rice to not feel the pressure on offense. And where Rice also really excelled in this game was his aggressiveness on the defensive end. Just really caused a couple turnovers and forces. He finished with 3 steals in this game. Just pestering Smith, and was pivotal along with Anthony Leal to shut down his game. Finished with 12 points on 4 for 12 shooting, 1 for 3 from 3, 3 for 4 from the field. Just great game from him. I really like how those two played well together, and hope that we can continue this kind of effort from him, because this is what we need from Miles Rice. Your thoughts on him?
I think you could argue for, 2 to 3 guys to be the MVP of this game, and I think that the one of the dark horses in that conversation has to be Miles Rice. I think a lot of it is because of his on the ball defense with Braden Smith. I think Braden Smith finished with 9 points. Was he even in double digits? I can't remember, but they. For a guy that's been talked about as you've heard some conversations as All-American, Big Ten Player of the Year, to hold Braden Smith in check, I thought everything that regardless of what Miles Rice was going to give us on the offensive end, that was just an incredible performance. And I thought one of the plays of the game was when Miles Rice picked his pocket and put Indiana up 44-0, or 44-40 early in the second half. And I just think his on the ball pressure was just stellar. Just had Braden Smith frustrated. Smith only shot 2 for 8 from the field. So that's big. I mean, that's big. He's been stellar all year. So, I think that's a game where you're just like, man, is Miles starting to figure it out? Because he's forced a lot offensively, and he's kind of had some ebbs and flows. And obviously shooting 4 for 12, he still wasn't crazy good at the offensive end, but one of 4 starters to finish in double digits, played over 30 minutes. That's a Miles Rice we need. If you're going to get that effort from him, you're going to get that 11, 12 points from him. You're going to get that defensive effort from him, because that's what's been lacking for this team. It's just defensively. When things fall apart offensively, defensively, they seem to as well. And while it looked rocky in the first half at times, they locked down in the second half, and Miles Rice just did a tremendous job the entire game on Braden Smith. So hat tip. He's taken a lot of heat this year for what he hasn't done, what he hasn't been, but we don't get that win without his on the ball defense on Braden Smith yesterday. So hat tip to Miles Rice.
Yeah. When you can take your rival team, or you can take any team and take their star player and make him put him in single digits, only 8 points, like you said, 2 for 8 from the field. But not only that, but the most minutes for Purdue at 36 minutes, and in the plus minus, they're the highest. Their star player, their best player has the highest negative in plus minus at -21. That's a recipe for success. I mean, sure, Fletcher Lawyer got 20, whatever. But if you're going to keep the 2 stars from your opponent from having games, that's how you do it. That's how you plan for that. And I think one of our stars is finally finding his footing. And we have been very critical about him, and it's been tough to see him try to come back after the injury. I thought we saw equally, like we've seen Rice come back and be his old self. This was Malik as his old self. He was very patient in this game, but equally aggressive. I mean, you can rewind any show. I've always been critical about Malik and his blinders that he gets when he gets the ball on the block, where he is going to go for his own shot. But I feel like he did not have those blinders at all in this game. Just was very smart to pass out when he needed to. He was 15 points in this game, perfect from the field, 7 for 7. I think there were some stats shared out there. I'm not going to quote them, but it's been very rare that you've had that someone at IU attempting 7 or more shots and being perfect on that. 1 for 1 from the free throw line, 4 assists. So that again shows how well he's done with that. Just 6 rebounds, 2 turnovers, and crossed the 1,000-point mark. So congratulations to him on that. But really the Malik that we needed to see. And then equally so, I will say on the defensive end, was very disciplined, stayed walled up, didn't really get into the usual foul trouble that we would say, even though, yes, he did finish with 4 fouls, but not dumb fouls in this game, I would say. Your thoughts on Malik's game?
Tremendous effort for Malik. I mean, perfect across the board outside of, maybe 2 turnovers. And, you don't worry about necessarily about the 4 fouls, but, you mentioned it, 7 for 7 from the field, 1 for 1 from the free throw line. That's I think about his effort in the second half and how pivotal. We've talked about a few guys now and how pivotal they were in that run in the second half, but Malik was getting whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. And that's at a high level, that's Malik at his best, right? I mean, you think about, he's had a bit of an up and down year, but, when he had that kind of breakout sophomore year into his junior year, and he was, when he was getting the ball by the rim, he was scoring. And it reminded me a lot of that, so I was impressed by his effort. He was engaged. He was getting up and down, a little bit chippy at times as well, but I thought Malik was incredible. I thought when he got the ball down low, he finished, and he's been struggling a bit, obviously fighting back from that injury, like you mentioned. But, I think that was one of his better games. And if you get that type of effort in 24 minutes of gameplay, 15 points, 7 for 7 from the field, that's, you went over plus and minuses, but that's got to be pretty solid one for IU. So great game by Malik.
Yeah. And I think Ballo as well, we'll finish off kind of talking uniquely about players. Did a good job just spelling Malik overall. Not a huge contributions, but he does get into double digits, 12 points, 5 for 7 from the field, 2 for 6 from a free throw line. So about where he standardly sits there, 5 rebounds, 1 block, 22 minutes. Just good job spelling Malik. It was really kind of that evident in the second half that we just needed to stick with those 5 guys. And then when Malik was having a little bit of foul trouble, get Ballo in there to do a few things here and there. And Ballo gets, obviously, one of the best pictures he'll ever have in his career at basketball, that great alley-oop dunk that him and Trey are really good at during the ball screen action. And that picture of him as he's holding one hand on the rim, swinging back with his tongue out. Great to see. I feel bad for the rim and basket, that big of a man swinging with his momentum on the rim there. But just, I think, good by him and coming in and contributing, but not being a detriment in this game. Any thoughts on Ballo?
Didn't you get a photo like that in high school where you dunked it and kind of had the same reaction?
Yeah, I think in Child's elementary school in Bloomington, when me and my friends would play basketball on the 7-foot rims, 6-foot rims.
I like it. I was Bison made a great comment in chat about kind of the banging your head on your desk about the lineups, and you look at when you compare Malik Renew and Omar Ballo. Malik played 24 minutes. Ballo played 23 minutes. Each got 7 field goal attempts off. Each scored in double figures, and essentially split minutes, for all intents and purposes. And I think that's something that, fans have been, and not just fans, put everything on fans, like seems to be the thing to do right now. It's just been any I'll say any ball knower has been like, man, you've got to get those 2 guys off the court at certain times and open up the floor a little bit. And look what happens when you do. And each guy is still getting theirs. You've got guys that are playing, 20, 23, 24, 25 minutes. They're still getting seven field goal attempts. They're still scoring in double figures. They're still getting their opportunities and points. And it's a little bit maddening, right? It's a little bit frustrating. It's like, man, why now? Why wait until you've got a foot out the door and it's our backs are against the wall to start playing this way in this style. So it's, to Bison's point, we mentioned it too. It is a little bit maddening, but I thought Ballo had a great game as well and came in and did his thing and I love that dunk. And he's a guy that's not going to shy away from anything with his size and intensity. So just like Malik, I thought he was effective close to the rim and gave Indiana what they needed. And I thought it was, I just go back to, man, I wish we could have seen Indiana play like this for an entirety of a season instead of just here down the stretch.
Yeah. I'm starting to look into stats next. Obviously, a lot of good stats to see in this game. I'll try not to take too many. I'll say maybe 2 or 3, and then I'll kick it to you, Martha, so I'm not stealing them all. But obviously, defense was the winning out factor in this game, and 7 turnovers just by Indiana. Fantastic in this game, as opposed to 16 turnovers that they forced from Purdue, 9 steals and 4 blocks. That kind of says it right there for IU. And then the other stat I'll say before I kick it to you would be 18 assists total by Indiana on 28 made baskets. Is just some fantastic sharing the ball and efficiency as far as those numbers compared to most of the year. What stats do you see that you like in this game?
I just think you look at the Purdue side of the box score, and what you spoke about defense and what Indiana was able to do, but you look at the Purdue starters. You've got one that scored in double figures, Fletcher Lawyer. I think you let him score in double figures all day. You take that, but holding Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith to 9 and 8 points respectively. I mean, somebody tells you that's going to happen before the game, you feel really, really good about Indiana's chances. I think both guys had pretty solid games when we played them in Mackey, and both guys have been talked about as being first team all Big Ten members. So to hold those guys to hold those two, to 17 combined points, that's huge for Indiana and their chances. They didn't allow those guys to beat them, and it speaks to how well, even the way with the first half win, it just speaks to how well Indiana, I think, played overall defensively. Obviously, didn't get a lot from Purdue's bench either. Miles Colden was the one bright spot for them, scoring 11 points. But, Indiana shortened up their bench, only 3 guys getting off the bench, which, is a little bit abnormal. And the names surprise you a little bit. So, no, those aren't necessarily stats, but, I think, again, I just go back to the Purdue box score, and I think it speaks volumes for the way we held their starting lineup, back a little bit. So good stuff.
Yep. I think some other things that I love seeing, 44 points in the paint from IU to Purdue's 18. Again, a lot of that's shutting down Kaufman-Renn, like you said. 23 points off of those 16 turnovers. Great as well. Another one I like to see as well that has been pretty rough in the past for IU, but 15 on 17 of 17 on layups for IU. Again, contributing to that 44 points in the paint that IU was able to do. Obviously not a huge emphasis or need of emphasis on the 3-point line like we have in the past. IU just kind of getting it done where they can and at a high efficiency standpoint in this game, finishing 1.177 points per possession on 64% from the field goal for IU. So great stuff to see over there overall for IU. The other thing to kind of speak on in this game, as we teased before, as odd as it is to say, IU is on the bubble in this talk. There isn't even some people that will say after this win puts IU in the first 4 out. IU has to probably go 10-10 in the Big Ten to get that, at least splitting the Big Ten. There are opportunities. I think one of the harder things leading up into these final games for IU is that away game against Oregon. That's kind of one of the tougher ones. Next up for IU, though, is Wednesday against Penn State. They've been on a bit of a lag. We beat them, obviously, in that home, quote-unquote, neutral court game. IU will have to hold serve at home as well and then steal that Washington game away to have any more of those thoughts. But we may be crossing our fingers and watching Selection Sunday. Your thoughts on IU possibly being able to squeeze in there?
You start to look at some of these quad 1 wins and the win at Michigan State is aging like fine wine. It is only going to help IU's cause. I mean, Michigan State's just gone on to beat Purdue and win at Michigan since that loss, and they're sitting say in the driver's seat, but I think they're going to get they're going to win the Big Ten or get a share of it. You think about winning at Ohio State, beating Purdue. But you look at the remaining, you mentioned it, you look at the remaining schedule, right? And you've got Penn State, you go out west for 2 games, Washington and Oregon, and then you're back home against Ohio State. I think you've got to go 3-1 in those games. I don't think that necessarily 100% gets you in, but that puts you in a position where if you get a win in the Big Ten tournament, I think you've got to feel good about your chances. So I put less emphasis on maybe the Oregon game. While that would be amazing to win, I think the thing you can't do is lose at Washington. You got to hold serve on those. If you lose at Washington, you've got to win at Oregon, I guess I'll say. So I think the easier of the two is going to be to win at Washington. I think you're in a really, really solid position to, and again, I said it earlier, it speaks more to kind of how bad the bubble is this year. The fact that we're still in the conversation, especially when you look at that stretch a couple weeks ago, and no discredit to anything we've been able to do, but we're 16-11. It's not, it's not like we're, having a tremendous year here, but yeah, we've got an opportunity. And I think with the changes that Woody's made, the way the team's playing right now here in the last couple of games, you've got to kind of be excited about how this thing could end. And it's, again, we've talked a lot about Mike Woodson and what he hasn't been as a coach, but simultaneously remembering that the dude's a legend when it comes to putting the Indiana jersey on, and the fact that we may have an opportunity to kind of send him out on a bit of a higher note than maybe we thought, I think is big, right? Because you never want to see, it's just a little disheartening thinking of how it could have ended. But now there's a little bit of a bright spot here potentially. So hopefully it comes to fruition and we can find a way to get ourselves into the dance. Yeah.
It's we have to realize as fans now, even if you are a staunch disliker, I hate to say the word hate because no one's truly hating Mike Woodson, but have extreme distaste for what he's done as a coach at IU. You have to be able to put all that aside now at this point, because the outcome is going to be what we want it to be, albeit a year late, you could argue. So now we can put that aside and let's cheer for this team, because now they have an opportunity to do something and push forward, and they need our support on all of that to move forward and get to those points, because we need to hold court, especially in these home games. So we need to fill out Assembly Hall in these last games and be loud and be the home court advantage that we are. It was very interesting even to see one comment on Twitter, be it true or not, that some of the new IU football recruits for next year were in attendance, and our leading quarterback coming from Cal was there at the game, and someone overheard him say that was awesome. And yeah, he's probably not experienced anything like that, because there's nothing like Assembly Hall when it is full-throated and excited and giving that energy to those guys, especially guys that are playing full halves like they do. So that's great to see, and we need to push that moving forward. I think we do need to spend at least a minute, as we will on a lot of these shows, updating any sort of coaching search news as it comes out. Obviously, we have to be a little bit aware as we kind of sit in this realm with a lot of time still before a decision is going to ever be made or any real concrete information is going to come out, to be a little bit leery of things you're hearing online, rumors you're hearing. I've got a friend that's connected here, or I heard this from here or there, or even listening to St. John's coaches as they do podcasts and make comments on the way they would do things, to be a little bit leery of that and not to jump on that too much. But there are some things that we can definitely at least say as far as news updates and newsworthy updates. Be it disappointing for me, as he is one of my big wishes, and probably a lot of you. Dusty May has been announced that he did get to an agreement on an extension with Michigan. So can more than positively take him off the list as far as that goes. But any of the news that you've seen in the coaching search, or where do you stand currently on all that?
I've kind of just taken a step back. I don't overreact to. I guess I'll preface all of this with saying that I've got complete faith that Dolson has and has had a plan for some time. I don't get a sense that he's going into this unprepared. I think it even stands to reason that he may already have his guy and we just don't know it, right? I mean, I think back to the football search and how that transpired, and names that were on the list, names that weren't on the list, and where we thought we were the days leading up to the hire. And all of a sudden the Cignetti name pops up. But, I just have complete faith that Dolson's been prepared for this moment for much longer than, I think he'd be dumb not to be. I think he knows what's at stake for the program. So for everything that we hear on Twitter, on X, on social media, on, wherever, any of the other coaches talking about who we should hire, to me, it's just like, let it breathe. Like, I think, we're not going to hear anything for a little while, and that doesn't mean that things aren't going. If coaches sign extensions, I think Dusty would have been a great candidate, but I think there's a lot of great candidates. I mean, with IU's resources, with IU's, with the NIL where it's at now, with, everything that this job provides, you just need a ball coach. And, there's a lot of those out there, and Dusty May's one of them, but I think there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them that have had great experience at very high levels. And I've got full trust that Scott Dolson's going to find us a good basketball coach, and we'll be in a good position when it's all said and done. Yeah, Chad, I've got to jump off because I got to get my kid to school, but it's been a pleasure as always, brother.
All right, thank you, buddy. Thank you, buddy.
Thursday, I think.
Yeah, we'll try to fit one on Thursday.
Awesome, thanks, guys.
All right, and with that said as well, the other news that has been announced as well with that coaching search is that IU has hired the same search firm that they did for when they were hunting for the football coach, when they found Curt Cignetti. And I would argue as well, when you're looking at different hot boards and all that kind of things, obviously this is a very different search than the football one was. But Curt Cignetti did not sit on a lot of those lists. And so who knows? It may be someone off those lists that IU's looking at that we don't know of. I think with Martha being gone, though, wouldn't be remiss if I did mention a little bit of our unofficial sponsor here on Hoosier Morning After, with those two final games that we have coming up at home. Like I said, we need everyone in there excited, full-throated, true, excited IU Hoosier Nation fans. Yes, I did say true fans in that, but I don't mean it in the way it's been said before. But if you find yourself in a situation where you can't go to that game, instead of putting it on Ticketmaster or one of the ticket sites, I do implore you, if you can, think about Hoosier Ticket Project. It's HoosierTicketProject.org. There you can go and donate your tickets. Any sporting event for IU, you can donate those tickets to. You can also go on to nominate someone that is in need of finding tickets, or in a situation that I think would be very deserving of the opportunities that Hoosier Ticket Project can supply for you. So please check them out at HoosierTicketProject.org. Closing out this one, I just love the way this game fell out so much for Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway, especially closing out their IU careers with a win against their rivalry, through the ups and downs that these guys have had to deal with, especially during their time at IU. To get that win against Purdue is fantastic. And as we continue to close out this season and have just a handful of games moving forward, being in the right direction and hopefully unlocked different things. We've seen and said that in these last couple of times of unlocking better things, and these coaching staff willing to make changes, albeit a little late, as we can argue. But the choices that are being made are the right ones here coming down the stretch. And IU needs to continue that moving forward. Quicker turnaround. We obviously had a 10-day turnaround between these last two games, between the UCLA and this Purdue game, but a quicker one now where IU is at home yet again, like I said, on Wednesday against Penn State, a 8:30 p.m. tip. Be there if you can, cheering loudly, getting this great home court advantage that we can afford as Hoosier Nation can only supply in that great hall that we have. So that'll be it for this edition of Hoosier Morning After. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being a part of it. Chadwick. There you can find out more information about the show, when we're going to go live, all that fun stuff. Follow Martha at the Mop Lady as well. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like, hit that subscribe, follow us on Twitter. Appreciate you being here. We'll be back again the morning after the next show. Until then, guys, I thank you so much for being with us. Go out there, have yourselves a wonderful day. And as always, let's go Hoosiers.